I'm going to be making chicken and dumplings. First, you need to get about 3 to 4 chicken legs. Put them in a pot and fill the pot up with water just till it comes just above the chicken, about an inch, half an inch to an inch. Make sure your chicken legs has pretty good amount of fat on them when you buy them, because that fat is really what's going to make your chicken, your water, be real brothy and bring the flavor to your dumplings. Boil your chicken until done, and that takes usually around 15-20 minutes maybe. The chicken legs will come apart, and just let them boil until they get done. Then when they're done, take them out of the boiling water, put them in a separate bowl, and let them cool down completely, or until you can touch them without getting burnt. Then pull the chicken off the bone and just throw the bones away in a bowl while the chicken is cooking. In a bowl, get about 2 cups or 2 cups and a half, or however how many dumplings you want to make. Now, if you're making these dumplings for a big party, a homecoming, a family reunion, then you will need more than 3 chicken legs. I'm only making this for my family tonight, so that's the reason I've just got 3 little puny chicken legs. But if you're making for a big amount of people, then you can double up on the chicken legs. That makes 6. This is about, I never really measured, so I'm just guessing it's probably about 2 cups of flour, and I used White Lily self-rising, but you can use whatever you got, because it really don't matter. At least I don't think it does. But anyway, it looks to me like it's about 2 cups that I did put in there. I always put ice cold water in this and mix it up until it's stiff like biscuit dough, until it cleans the bowl and you can touch it without getting it all over your fingers. And then I don't have a board big enough to roll all this out using my rolling pin, so what I do is just pinch off a little bit at a time and just kind of well, you'll see in a little bit. I don't know why I'm explaining it right now when I could show it to you in a few minutes. Anyway, let me get this cold water in this, and then I'll show you what I mean. Got my ice cold water with my ice chunks, and you can use just straight ice cold water out of the refrigerator in a jug. Pour this into my biscuit dough a little bit at a time. It will not take all this water. So I'm going to pour a little bit at a time until it gets thick to where I can roll it out and get my biscuit balls off. Be back, show you what I mean. Now my dough is getting to where I can control it by hand, and I'm going to try my best to make it clean all this up by just squishing, and it's hard to do with this one-handed. You roll this ball of dough around like this right here, and just keep picking up those crumbs down there in the bottom. Squish, and until you get all this clean, and then you can put it out on your floured surface for rolling out. Well, see, it don't make my hands dirty at all. Well, a little bit. I take back the all word. It does a little bit. I'm making a video here about my chicken and dumpling recipe to put on my cooking channel. Anyhow, just keep squishing, and I'll be back in a few minutes. Now, as you can see, my dough here, clean my bowl. Just keep going like this all around the bowl till it cleans it. Now that my dough is where I can handle it now, kind of knead it a little bit. I know I'm being noisy. I got my bowl sitting on these burner covers, and they're sliding around everywhere. Now I'm going to flour up my plate, and I'm going to pinch off a little bit of this at a time, and I'm going to roll it out with a jar. Pinch this little tiny dough ball off of my dough, my big dough ball. I'm going to flatten this out, and then I'm going to Tiny. You can get a knife and cut it into about inch strips, and I will do that, but when I get my strips made, I'm going to pick up my strips and just pinch off little pieces and put it in another plate. And strips about like this with your knife, and just until you get strips out of this. The plate, I've got me some flour, and as you pinch off your dough pieces, like I'm doing, about that size, you want to roll them up like this in the extra flour here, and just throw them down in the plate. Pinch about an inch to half inch to 1 inch balls. Just roll them in the flour and leave them over there. Anyway, I got my dough pieces finished. Make sure you've got enough flour on these or they will stick together while you're waiting for your chicken to finish getting done. Get off the bone and discard the bones, and then I'm going to put these chicken chunks back into the broth when I get done with them. I noticed that a lot of my water had evaporated away during the cooking process, so I'm going to add just a little bit more water to this. Also adds a little bit of salt to your water too. I forgot to mention that. Just a little. I put about 3 tablespoons. 2 was really heaping high, like that, and then the last one I put in wasn't that all that big, but about 3 heaping tablespoons of butter. You notice that my water is turning yellowish looking. At least I think you can tell. Now turn your burner up on high just for a little bit and let this broth start boiling some. Let it begin to go into a boiling stage before you start adding your dough pieces in. And you add your dough pieces in just a little bit at a time. Don't take a handful and just dump them in there, because they'll splash up and you'll get burnt and they won't cook right. Take your chicken. See, I can touch it without getting really burnt. It's a little hot, but not bad enough to burn me. And just pull it off the bone and put it in another bowl. And then you can add this to your dumplings in the future. Now that the broth is starting to boil again, turn your burner back down to about medium, because you don't want it to boil over. The butter will set your house on fire. And see how I put just a little bit of those? Is that getting steamed up? A little bit of those on this right here. Just dump them in easy like, and stir them up, and add some of the flour, the extra loose flour. I call it flour, but you can call it whatever you want to. Add it in there too and stir, because that flour will make your gravy. Hope I made enough dumpling balls for that amount of water I put in there. I might have put too much water. If you find that you put too much water in this and not enough dumpling balls made, just put a little extra loose flour in there and let it just make the gravy instead. People can sop up their gravy in cornbread, you know. It don't have to waste. Or biscuits. And stir like this. When this gets done or starts into its cooking process, let your dumplings cook until done. You can pick you out the biggest one you can, lay it out after about 15-20 minutes of cooking. Let them cook for about 15-20 minutes. Then pick out a big dumpling, take a fork or a knife or something and cut down in it. And if there's no floury, if it's not got raw flour in the middle of it and it's done, then your dumplings are ready. And I didn't make enough dumpling balls for all the water. I shouldn't have put extra water in this. So what I'm going to do is just add extra flour like this. To make gravy instead. You don't want your dumplings getting too thick no-how, because the gravy will be like paste instead of a nice juicy juice. Go ahead and add your chicken in this. And just mix it down in there and let it cook in with your dumplings until they get done. Now I'm going to finish cooking this. It should be done in just a little while. Just about 10 or 15 more minutes. 20 or 25 maximum. Stir them real good occasionally during the cooking, because they will stick and they will burn if they stick too long. Now we're going to check this big thick dumpling and see if it's done in the middle or not. You take a fork or a knife or a spoon. I've got the spoon here. Just kind of like cut through it. See how it looks a little doughy still? Is that showing? Needs to cook just a little bit longer. It's almost done. And this is the finished results of my dumplings. And also made my cornbread, which I will be doing a recipe, or I mean a video. I will be doing a video on that soon. But this is how you make Charlotte's country home-style chicken and dumplings. Hope you try it. Bye.